On today's show, we have the two writers of a new children's book that Steph Curry stars in. It's called Sports Superheroes Stephen Curry, and it combines all your favorite things: basketball, the greatest three-point shooter of all time, little Marvel superhero action, has some Space Jam vibes to it. And I think this thing is going to be a hit. So I had to get these two on to talk about how it came to be and what they learned about Steph Curry. That's on today's Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, how are you? Charlie Walter here, formerly of 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. That is the flagship of the Golden State Warriors. Also covered the team for CBS News Bay Area. This is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. Take us on the go. Subscribe, Spotify, Apple. We're there for you at all times. Also, YouTube. We have the live postgame shows. After the buzzer sounds, as soon as the horn sounds, we're hitting live on YouTube. It's a free invitation, and we are starting that with the preseason. And every game this year, the preseason begins October 5th against the Los Angeles Clippers. So hit that bell, the notification, so you know when we go live. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, we're talking about a new graphic novel series that has come out. It's called Sports Superheroes. Steph Curry was the first athlete to be featured. It sounds like Jackie Robinson is going to be next. Curry's such a role model for younger generations, and it's why he was chosen to be in this book. He's a real-life superhero. And Curry clearly understood the influence when he ventured into this literary world with this comic series. It's designed to inspire and educate, and it is a fun read for even the adults. The two writers that we're talking to in just a minute, Rich Korson, who was executive producer of The Who Was Show, Great Minds with Dan Harmon, and then TV writer Josh Bycel. Some of his shows you may have seen: Happy Endings, Scrubs, Be Cool, Scooby-Doo. So these guys, they have some humor, they have some creativity, they clearly have a lot of talent. And when you combine those things with Steph Curry, you get a damn good book. But it's a journey into Curry's life where kids can find both motivation and inspiration as he shares his personal story and encourages young readers to discover their own talents and embrace life's ups and downs. So without further ado, it's Rich Korson and Josh Bycel. Did you work with Steph directly, or was it more through his people?
It was more at the beginning. It was more. So basically, the way the book came about is that Rich and I have known each other for years. Rich worked he ran Jon Stewart's company when Jon was on The Daily Show, and I used to do a bunch of stuff for The Daily Show. So we met way back when. We have multiple friends in common, and we sold a show to Comedy Central. God, this is when Comedy Central was a thing that was like a mock sports documentary show when all these sports documentaries were getting big. And then by the time we were done, Comedy Central didn't exist anymore. But we both have boys now. Obviously, this is 4 years on, but we both have boys who are crazy sports fans, but also love Marvel movies and love that stuff. And Rich had a connection and had worked with the Who Was people at Penguin, the Who Was books. And they were looking for something like sort of maybe, I guess you could say, a cooler version of that, right, Rich?
Yeah, they kind of were interested in graphic novels, and they hadn't really done a lot in the sports space. And as Josh said, we have boys who love sports, love Marvels, but also are kind of reluctant readers. And we're like, what would be as a parent, I was sort of like, what would be a great book to buy for my kid? And we're really fortunate that we could kind of create it. So we combine the worlds of Marvel and that sort of big exaggerated storytelling with Steph's life story. And his story is perfect as a Marvel story,
it's the origin story of a sports superhero, really, is what it is. And, so we pitched it. I mean, I think it was my first Zoom pitch in April of 2020, I think. Right. I mean, it was literally the first time I'd ever been on Zoom with the Penguin people, and they loved it. And they basically said, hey, we would love to buy 4 books. We really need the first one to be Messi, Serena, Steph, LeBron, or, who was the other one? Ronaldo, like the 5 biggest sports stars in the world. And I had one connection at Steph's company, and they're great. And they really saw, and it was just the sort of, they were realizing that they wanted Steph to have a sort of a place in books and kids' books. And, they got it right away. And, but it took, it's 4 years later now, just because A, the deals take forever, and B, if you've seen the book, and I hope someone sent it to you, if not, we will make sure you get it. It's incredibly colorful. It's bright. And we hired they actually found him, right, Rich? They found Damien. Yeah.
Yep.
And it takes a year to just do that. And so your first question is sort of a roundabout way of saying, like, we didn't have as much connection with Steph. We would go back and forth with details, and they would send us details. And we know that he looked at every draft of the book.
It was pretty fun for Josh and I to get like pictures of him holding the manuscripts and each draft and giving notes and being like, yeah, my high school coach didn't exactly look like that. So it was through the unanimous folks, but Steph definitely put his imprint on it for sure.
Then last week or 2 weeks ago, when we were in New York, we finally really got to meet him and spend time with him. When he did a bunch of press, he did the Today Show, and he did Colbert, and he did CNBC, and it was amazing to see him hold the book. There was an amazing moment because Dell, his dad, was there as well. And Rich and I are sitting in the green room at the Today Show, and Dell clearly had never seen the book. And Steph was showing Dell the book, and they were looking at the chapter, which is called The Summer of Tears, which is directly from his life, when basically Dell said, you're going to be tiny. You have to redo your jump shot or you're never going to make it. And they were like reminiscing about it. And that was very surreal, right, Rich? Like
yeah. It was a summer where Steph and Dell were in the driveway just grinding it out, and they laughed about it.
It's like the scene from Space Jam with Jordan, where the dad's like, it's time to go to bed, Michael. And he's like, one more shot, Dad, until I miss. Shoot till you miss.
What a cool thing. Yeah. And then we were talking to Dell about and Steph about we're doing a project with Rex Chapman. And there's a scene in Rex's book where he's in a car with Muggsy Bogues and Del Curry, and they're talking about who the best shooter in the car is. And baby Steph's in a car seat, and little did they know that the best shooter in the car was in the car seat. So we got to laugh with Steph and Del about that as well.
And everything in this book is 1,000% true. Okay.
Other than a sports council and a horse that picks the next sports hero.
So we created this thing because to bring the Marvelness into it, we created this thing called the Sports Superhero Council, who are these like figures in cloaks that are underneath MSG, Madison Square Garden, and they're like the Justice League, right, for sports basically. And they're the ones, and we sort of allude to the fact that they're old athletes and famous athletes. As Rich said, one of them may or may not be a horse that's Secretariat. And the idea of the book is they're basically choosing in the middle of a game with the Warriors versus the Knicks, everything stops. And these kids are chosen to come down. So we really wanted it to be through the eyes of kids. So it's 2, 11, 12-year-old kids are chosen to come down to this like sort of the throne room underneath Madison Square Garden where the super sports heroes are. And they're like, we need super sports heroes 2.0. We need someone to lead the next generation. And they're like, dude, upstairs, Steph Curry, he's the one. And so then they tell the story of Steph's life. And so
make the case, it's to kind of make the case to this council that he should be the next sports superhero. And he's like the guy who should be leading the charge in modern times.
Coming up, we continue this conversation. What was the most surprising thing that these two learned about Steph Curry that the world may not know? You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and we got a little something different for you. This is now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. A lot of NFL games, college football. We got baseball playoffs coming up. FanDuel, it is the place to be. I'm not giving you any locks right now, but I'm already looking at that opening line between the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. In fact, I haven't checked it out whatsoever. But when I do, I'll be doing it at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, so tell me this. It sounds like it's a book that has a lot of nuances to it. Is it something that the adults reading at story time, they'll get a kick out of it too? Because, I mean, the graphics alone, man, that's good stuff.
100%. Josh is such a accomplished comedy writer, and I think his humor and intelligence really comes through the book. So I think parents will chuckle at some of the jokes and some of the humor and some of the throwaways. So 100%. We definitely love this, a mom and dad reading it to their kid or picking it up when the kid puts it down and whipping through it as well.
It kind of sounds like maybe, just peeling back the onion, a little bit of like Space Jam towards this book, or was it just a completely, different thought when you were getting started into this venture?
No, I mean, listen, I'm a comedy writer. That's what I do for a living. So everything I do is think about old movies and TV shows, right? I mean, and I have an animated show on Hulu that we celebrate, old movies and TV shows. And Rich has spent years and years in the business. And so, no, Space Jam is definitely a North Star for us in terms of the way to feature an athlete, a great athlete. And Space Jam is so funny. And by the way, it's evergreen. My kids love it. I guess LeBron will get mad, but they love it more than the new one. They love Space Jam. So, and the comedy, remember Bill Murray is in Space Jam, right? Really funny in that movie. So
yeah, and we got Newman in it.
And Newman's in it, of course. And Bill Murray, Newman, and Larry Bird are playing golf. So that was the idea, and especially because the shows I do are adult animated shows, right? Dirty adult animated shows. And so we wanted to bring a little bit of and we wanted it to not be dry, right? We wanted it to be we wanted it to live in this space where if a kid has to do a book report on Steph Curry, they can use this book, right? But also they can have fun with it, I think. And Rich hit upon it for us is this whole reluctant reader thing. Our boys are not the biggest readers in the world, and we wanted to create something that would be a joy for them to read.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things when I'm looking into this that's so cool about this book is that it's about, Steph Curry's influence a little bit and how he can be a role model for the younger generations, the values beyond the NBA that he has. And I'm just going through all the details of it. And he says at one point, that the book, has the potential to shape kids' mindsets in future with the early exposure that it can do to their development. So when you hear that out of the mouth of Steph Curry, that this book can really influence how kids view life, because, for example, it encourages young readers to discover their own talents and embrace life's ups and downs. That's what he said specifically. So your thoughts when you hear that about how the book can kind of serve as a compass somewhat?
Listen, the fact that Steph Curry is talking about our book is surreal to begin with, right? As huge, massive basketball fans. And then for him to understand and get what, kind of all the layers in the book is it's so joyful for us. And, we feel so lucky to be able to tell his story and tell it in a way that's relatable and that kids can connect to. So we're we're pinching ourselves. We're so psyched that Steph is involved in this.
Yeah. I mean, he was the perfect person because there's no wonder he's the most popular player in the NBA. He looks like a kid. You know what I mean? He's not 6'9". He is, And he did overcome. Yes, his dad was an NBA player, but he had to overcome a lot. And even when he got to the NBA, right, there was a point where when he had those ankle injuries where everyone was like, he's a bust, you know? And I think the other thing is that Rich came up with something really cool. And Rich, you should talk about sort of the super sports heroes motto, the we, us, you know, that was something that we felt, first of all, the way Steph goes about his life, the way his brand is, the way his nonprofit work is, like we felt it was important that the super sports heroes have this motto, that it's like 3 pillars that they need their super sports heroes to live up to.
Yeah, we really looked at Steph's life and sort of put the council into this mindset of, you know, we want to, you have to be the best version of you, right? To be the next level, the next super sports superhero. You have to accomplish and get to your potential, right? So it's sort of the idea of like, you have to look out for me. And then us is sort of widening out a little bit, which is you have to be a great teammate, somebody that inspires your team and makes your teammates better. And then widening out from that is like, what are you doing for your community? What are you doing for the people around you? How do you use your platform and your influence to make your community better? And man, like Steph checks those boxes, like, you know, 7 times over. So as we write the next books, we're always thinking about like this me, us, we motto that the council has, and thinking about how the athlete sort of fits into that box.
I think the casual sports fan knows Steph Curry's story. Star at Davidson, bursts onto the scene in the NCAA tournament when they beat Gonzaga, and then they follow it up with a win over Georgetown, and then they beat Wisconsin. Sorry about it.
I knew that was coming. Don't worry, I knew that was coming.
And then he balls out against Kansas in a loss, and from that point on, the entire world that likes basketball knew who Steph Curry was. LeBron James starts going to his games. We know he can make threes. We know he's the ultimate underdog. We know he's elite with a 9-iron. We know that he's a pretty good actor now that he has his own, you know, stars in his own television show. But what surprised you most with the behind the scenes past that you kind of got into Steph Curry's life? What did you not know about him that you were just like, that was awesome?
I mean, I think for me, I did not know that even after all that stuff you said in the NCAA tournament, right? Remember, he was at Davidson for another year after that. He didn't come out. So, and they didn't do as well. Is so much of the draft talk. Like we went back and looked at it, and there's a chapter where it's just all these words coming at him as he's trying to, a lot of the draft pundits were like, no way he's going to make it. No way he's going to make it.
He was the 3rd point guard chosen that year.
You know, he's too small. He's too frail. He won't be able to get a shot off. Like even after all he'd done, he just didn't look like a modern NBA player, right? Now everyone looks like him. And I think that was really surprising once again. And then the other one was like when he got to the Dubs and when they were good, but not great. And remember, the whole reason they got Kevin Durant basically is because they were able to re-sign him to that contract because he was like coming off those ankle injuries. And it was just, to me, really interesting to see that, like, yes, we know all the big stuff, but like even along those paths, once he came out and was crushing it at Davidson, he still had more times where people were absolutely just not believing in him. You know, and that was really interesting. And then the only other thing I will say, and then Rich, is the way he met Aisha, I thought was really cool. That like she was so not interested in him at first.
You get into that too.
Yeah, we have a chapter about Aisha. We have a chapter about
that's
Clay.
where the Comedy Central skills came into play.
I
know. Throwing that remix. The adults are like, hey, wait a second.
No, she made him work. She made him work for it.
I respect that. Live events are great. And at this point, with all the technology we have, they can be easy as well. Take the guesswork out of live events with Gametime. Some of the features that you get, the closer you get to your event, the cheaper tickets get. So you can play the procrastination game. No issues there. Also, the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. You get panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. That is good stuff all the way around. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
His story is incredible. I think for a parent, for your kid to read a story about a guy who can overcome incredible adversity is just like is a gift for your kids. Like, all of our kids stumble and they have to get back up and they have to put the work in. But then the joy of watching, these kids like, sitting on the couch and reading a book and being off their screens is like awesome for us to hear those stories.
And the other one I would say is that if you buy the book, Rich will come to your child's bedroom and read it.
Yeah. It's not weird. It's not weird at all.
It's not creepy at all.
No.
No, I mean, I think I think Rich said it best. Like, it is, when you open it and see it, and it all props to Damien, who is the artist, but it kind of just leaps off the page in a way that we always envisioned, but never thought we could get, right? It's so bright and so vibrant. And there's more books coming. We have one coming on Jackie Robinson. We have one coming on Wilma Rudolph, who is a very famous female athlete, Olympian. And then another one coming on, we're working on it right now, a modern day female athlete as well. So, they'll be able to collect all the books.
Is it more about the star or more about the story? Because if it's more about the story, Brock Purdy is kind of making one of these books, right? Or do they have to be?
I think it's about both. Right?
I think gotta have a little more seasoning, just a little more seasoning.
Yeah, he needs to be a little bit, but he could be there. I mean, he didn't play great on Sunday, but they've lost all their guys. But I mean, your guy Joe Burrow, he just needs a couple more years and another haircut, maybe, and he'll be there. He's actually the poster child for why the portal makes sense, because he was just buried at Ohio State. My friends who all played Division I football say the same thing: is that football, more than anything, you could just get buried so easily. You know what I mean? And you never bury. They wanted Barry Sanders to be a defensive back, and then a new coach came. You know what I mean? Like, football is so tough. But yeah, no, I think we're juggling with, obviously Jackie Robinson's life is amazing. Wilma Rudolph's life is amazing. But the next modern day athlete will be someone who's like a little bit, someone like Steph, who's like still in the prime, but also has done a lot, I think.
So growing up, going to the Scholastic book fairs and the libraries, all that stuff, there were like the Matt Christopher books that were, you were like a little bit older, right? You were third, fourth grade reading those things. Sports Illustrated was massive. Seems like in this current era, I mean, if these things take off, right, it could be pretty cool for you guys. Hope. I mean, there's nothing like it that I've seen, really. But I don't.
We actually got into all the Scholastic. Scholastic was very excited about it. So funny. It was funny to hear, and I have kids who were in it still, but just that Scholastic is still that powerful. But they were super psyched about the book. So we'll see.
Hell yeah, fellas.
And while we have you, what are the Warriors going to do this season? What are the
all right? Well,
come on, give it to us.
At this point, we can give you some more content. I think my motto for them this entire offseason has been waiting in the weeds, ready to pounce. They're sitting back in a bushel right now. Can you see me? Can you see me? I got 45 last year, and they have all their draft capital in line. They have Pajemski, who's getting paid nothing if they wanted to ship him. They have Jonathan Kuminga. They have Andrew Wiggins if he bounces back. There's so many question marks. So like we know what the team's floor is. It's oh yeah, last year wasn't a fluke. This team's just not that good. But their ceiling, especially with trades being involved, like I still think that there's a question mark next to the Warriors, but they're at least a team to watch, because if they do hover around, 5-10 games above 500, whatever it may be, and we get into the new year and they're willing to part ways with a Kuminga, with a Pajemski, and with a couple of draft picks, they can get anyone. Any disgruntled star with that sort of package that, a team like the Suns can't do. And unless the Lakers depart with one of their superstars, it would be tough for them to make a deal. So they do have some flexibility in that route. I don't think the current roster right now is constructed to win a championship, but I do think there's a level of intrigue. So waiting in the weeds,
All
ready
right.
to pounce.
I
We'll
like
see
some
if
of
they
their
pounce.
draft picks. I like Trace Jackson-Davis from Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
He'll probably start, right? Is he going to start?
He'll probably be starting at the 5 unless they go small ball with Draymond at the 4.
Oh, right.
Or with Draymond at the 5, rather.
Is Looney still on the team? Is he
Looney's still on the team, so
Yeah,
there's always the possibility that's Draymond at the 4 and Looney at the 5. But
that's how
I would think that I would think that Trace and Draymond playing together could be pretty enticing if it's Kuminga or Wiggins at the 3 and then Podziemski and Curry at the guard position. So I don't think they're going to be bad by any means, but I do think it's hard to look into a camera and say one way or the other. Warriors are going to be awful, or the Warriors ceiling is a 7 seed. I do think it's tough to say because I don't think the roster is going to look the same by the end of the year. But fellas, thank you for joining. I hope this thing pops off, and hopefully hopping on the show got this into the hands of some young or some parents that can buy this book for some young Warriors fans. What's good?
I just have one more question. Do you know how old Looney is? Kevon Looney is?
Isn't he only like 26?
He's 28 years old. He feels like he's been in the NBA, here because my son, for literally 15, 20 years already.
Yeah, I mean the hips don't look great by any means, but I'll tell you what, he said he's working on a jump shot this offseason.
All right,
throw that into his arsenal. He's going to try to stretch the floor like he did in California when he played for UCLA, and we'll see. He grabs rebounds and he defends great around the rim. He wasn't as good as he's been last year.
He's a lumberer. He's a classic NBA lumberer.
Yeah,
no doubt.
He's the best.
Well,
all right. Well, thanks, man.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, guys.